Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei was Acnologia the Dragon and made Harem with Beast Girls Part 2. Before we start, please go support Acnologia-apocalips for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. Chapter 6, Reunion and Forgiveness, 1. Issei looked at his former wives with a gloomy look and his dark aura that was at incalculable levels. And for many reasons it was incalculable, since the entire planet was in darkness, electrical storms, hurricanes and earthquakes were forming, humans around the world were disturbed since they stole and killed thinking it was the end of the world. In the world of the gods, all the gods were scared and fearful as they had only felt that power during the war. Zephyr, god of wind, this is not possible, he said, trembling with fear as he felt the power of that monster. He thought that wretch had decided to sleep forever. Who was the idiot who woke him up? He shouted with anger and fear to his other brothers and sisters. Hello, we don't know, brother, he said, the deity of foxes and one of the four most powerful gods. Male, calm down, brother Sapphiro, we don't know if he really woke up, maybe he's just a bearer of the power of the black dragon, said seriously one of the most powerful of the four celestial gods of heaven. Besides, there is still a vacant position since our sister Gabriel left, he said, sighing with sadness at the departure of his sister, and the most powerful of his group. World of demons. Belzebub, no, and I can't believe it. I woke up and left one of the 8 princes of hell or generals. The Lord of the Flies was nervous and scared at the same time. Asmodeus, who was there with his partner devising how to revive his queen, but like him he was afraid of what would happen if his queen revived. Beelzebub, what are we doing, Satan? He said to his other cursed companion, and the most powerful of the generals. Satan, call Leviathan and Lucifer, we need them to find a bearer of the power of the dragon of the apocalypse, he said, to be with several goat legs and a demonic aura so horrible that whoever felt it within a radius of 10 meters would die. Beelzebub, I'm calling them, but I need the remains of our queen's power, and something very important from the gods to be able to revive her, said the Lord of the Flies. Leviathan. Lucifer. Lilith, demon queen, in case you were wondering what she looked like. Jack, demon of darkness and illusions. Musin, demon of control, aka Michael Jackson, or for short, Hee. Valak, demon of despair. Note, she is a grey demon from Nanatsu no Taizai. Those are the 8 generals or princes of hell, and Valak is the one who took the position as king since his other companions refused, since they had more important things to govern, and that was to revive their queen. With Issei and the girls, everything was silent. The atmosphere was so heavy that a simple leaf could break it at any moment. Tanya and Kanade, knowing that their partner was furious that they could literally end the world, they had to stop him, and they also wanted to know how Issei knew those women and that those women knew him. Kanade, Issei, could you calm down please? You're scaring Sora and Runa, she said, touching her partner's shoulder. Tanya, please let's talk in a civilized manner, she said as she grabbed his hand, something that was noticed by Gabriel and Penemu, who frowned slightly at that action. Issei, seeing that Sora and Runa were trembling with fear, could only let out a sigh of resignation and contain anger. Listening to his partners, he suppressed his power so everything returned to normal, causing the girls without exception to let out a sigh of relief. Issei, follow me, he said seriously as he walked to a fast food establishment. Along the way, there was an awkward silence as no one said anything. When they arrived at the establishment, they ordered their food and waited for it to be brought to them. Waitress 1, excuse me, can I take your order? Said a waitress from the establishment with a kind smile, with an aura of gentleness and innocence without any hint of corruption in Issei's eyes. Issei, baked pork with salad, he said seriously. Tanya, I want wild boar meat from the mountains, she said with drool coming out of her mouth. Kanade, I want 2 salmon from the shining river, she said with stars in her eyes, that delicacy of the gods. Sora, I want a wild fruit salad and a roast chicken, she said shyly since she is not used to talking to other humans. Runa, the same thing, my sister said smiling. Penemu, the same thing, the boy said, earning a questioning look from Issei, and then removing that look already knowing the appetite of his ex-wives. Well, some of them. Gabriel, I want a tomato salad and what Miss Conade ordered and a chocolate shake, said Gabriel, gulping. He was leaving because of hunger since they hadn't eaten anything since they arrived in town. Waitress 1, ready, I'll bring them to you in a moment, she said as she bowed and then went to deliver the orders, but without knowing it, the girl made her breasts bounce, which made Sora and Runa depressed to the level of Hashirama. Sora/Runa, why are you so cruel, fate? They said at the same time, hitting their heads on the table, causing everyone present in the group to get a drop of anime-style liquid. Issei, very well, I'll get straight to the point. How did they get here? He said seriously, since the only thing that came to mind was that Great Red or Ophis had helped them, but looking at them closely, Gabriel did not look anything like what he was in his dimension. Of course he was an angel and that. But he could feel that he is not angelic but something divine, and for Penemu it is the same. He no longer felt anything sacred. Now he is demonic, and they can only obtain that if they are reincarnated or reborn here. But he needed to confirm if his theory is true. Penemu, well, you see, before you left and after killing Rias, the girls had fallen into madness and had literally kidnapped a boy who looked like you when you were brown-haired. They raped the poor guy and killed his partner. They even called him Issei, she said, remembering that traumatic moment. Those who kidnapped the boy were Akeno and Zenuvia. The others only bought life-size pillows of you that they literally even put a dildo in, she said, denying the madness of those women and thanking her dead father for reconsidering her sins. Issei listened to everything that Penemu said, and needless to say he wasn't as impressed as he expected him to be, but it did disturb him to know what those women were doing with that life-size doll of his. He felt a little sorry for the lost souls who ended up in the hands of two damn nymphomaniacs, and that one of them was a sadomasochist almost made him feel sorry for her, almost, nothing more. Issei's girls didn't understand anything he was thinking, but they were disturbed that those women were doing things with those dolls. Issei, I see, I guess the others couldn't surpass me either, but that doesn't answer my question. Penemu, I'm getting to that part, dear, she said without realizing how she called him, earning a twitch in the eye from Issei and the girls and a hard look from Gabriel. Those who managed to overcome you and let you go were few since Tiamat died because of the fallen dragon. Issei, that Tiamat died. Ha 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 ha, he said with doubt, but couldn't help but laugh and couldn't help but say out loud that karma came to the chaos dragon and karma revenges. Sweet Drake said, laughing in a macabre way, something that made the girls tremble, but not Gabriel or Penemu, knowing how he is. Just listen to the laughter of the man sitting with a cane and top hat from minute 011 to minute 021. Penemu, well then we had to seal Gabriel's memories or erase the memories she had of you. But she decided to seal them because she didn't eat and she didn't leave her room. She spent her time crying for you, but she was also blaming herself for her mistake until one day she committed suicide, she said seriously, looking at Gabriel seriously, which made him turn away the look that her friend and her husband were giving her even though he didn't know it. After that everything became calm in the factions. There were no more wars, but it is not necessary to mention that there is always some idiot with delusions of grandeur with world domination syndrome. That fool was strong, but I killed him, but at the cost of my life. I was in a deep sleep until I woke up as a demon in the underworld. I quickly became a general in command of Queen Lilith. When we went to war with the gods, I realized that Gabriel was in the faction of the gods. At first I did not recognize her, but after I felt her aura and just to make sure I called her by her name, and then she recognized me. We decided to leave our commands to each faction and be free, but over time we heard rumors that a black dragon appeared and made a unilateral massacre on both sides. There we realized that you were here, he said, sighing from tiredness, and just in time while they bring you your orders. Waitress 1, I'm sorry for the delay. Here is your order, enjoy it, she said before leaving with a bounce of her breasts that only made Runa and Sora depressed. Tanya, to all this, you who are Issei's, she said with doubt, since in the whole story they told it seemed that you knew Issei long before them. Kanade nodded to her partner, but the following words left everyone speechless without exception. Penemu/Gabriel. We are their wives, they said at the same time, and those at the food stand could only choke at that revelation, and the men only cursed Issei for such tremendous beauties. Issei, who still hadn't processed what they said, continued eating calmly, but after a few minutes he stopped eating. Issei, I think I heard wrong, repeat it to me. Penemu, he said with a kind smile, something that surprised his girls since they never saw him smile, but that disappeared since they saw that his veins were visible on his forehead, cheeks and neck. Like the demons from Kimetsu no Yaiba. Penemu, do you remember when we got married in heaven on the top floor where God ruled? He said so that Issei nodded still without fully understanding this while Penemu took out a scroll from his pocket to mention. We did not get married as a mortal marriage. You also know that you signed a universal marriage contract made by Father, and of course it was the goddess Hera herself who blessed us and married me, Gabriel and you together, she said to pass him the scroll that Issei grabbed slowly, and upon reading it and feeling his presence in the contract. Not only that, but all of him, a part of his soul, his essentia, his blood with which he signed his name, all of him is in this damn paper. Damn you Elohim, that bearded man was powerful. He gave him that, but the bastard had several tricks up that divine sleeve. Issei, after finishing reading it, tried to destroy it but couldn't, since apparently it is protected by his power even after having been corrupted. The power that gave him the contract is still latent and connected to him, and he couldn't break it without any other options. He returned it to Penemu, who kept it back. Tanya, then you.us.e.t. are his first women, he said, stuttering from the revelation. Kanade had choked on her food from that revelation. Sora and Runa couldn't believe it, and it only made them more depressed when they saw the tremendous bust of those women and murmured things about injustice. Issei's veins were popping out from the pent-up anger, but in Penemu he felt another energy apart from the demonic one. Issei, how do you have my power? He said seriously, looking at Penemu in search of an answer, since if his power accepted this woman as its bearer, that means that the demons and gods will seek his power, or worse yet, they will seek the bearers. Penemu, you mean this, he said, showing the bident that appeared in a magic circle, making Issei nod, and the girls were fascinated by the bident. I don't know, one day I was exploring a cave until I felt a dark and evil power, but when I entered the cave, there I saw it. The bident was surrounded by that aura of death, but I also felt your aura in it, so I thought about giving it back to you, but it wouldn't let me grab it. But I didn't let that stop me. I spent a week trying until it accepted me as its bearer, said Penemu. How did you achieve such an achievement? The girls were surprised, since becoming the bearer of one of Issei's power fragments was an almost impossible achievement, since the fragments fiercely rejected the factions of the gods and demons. Issei, TSK, this changed my plans. Gabriel, Penemu, follow me, I need to talk to you alone, he said to go behind an alley of the establishment. Girls, stay here and order whatever you want, he said, followed by Penemu and Gabriel. In the alley, Issei was leaning against a wall with his arms crossed and looked like he was meditating, while Gabriel and Penemu watched him silently. Issei, I'm going to be direct. WWH, I want you to join my group, he said with difficulty in saying that because he was literally inviting his ex-wives to follow him. To Penemu, he doesn't hate her that much since she already realized her mistake, and she wasn't going to lie. It was gratifying to see the suffering of others, and on Gabriel's part, that is another case, she hasn't given up on him. Both Gabriel and Penemu were surprised. They expected an insult or a death threat from Issei to get as far away from him as possible, but they never expected that response. But even though they didn't show it on the outside, on the inside they were exploding with emotion and happiness. Gabriel and Issei, I know you hate me, but can I ask why you want us to join your group? She said with doubt, since she did not understand this outburst on the part of her husband. Issei, even though it hurts me to admit it, I need your help now, knowing that my power can be controlled. I need help to find the rest, and the most dangerous ones would be my sword of the apocalypse and the gauntlet of chaos, he said seriously, while the girls now understood the situation. But don't be confused. After I have all my power we will separate, he said seriously, and the girls nodded a little sadly, knowing that it wasn't going to be easy. Issei was about to retreat back to the tavern, but he felt someone hugging him from the sides. Apart from that, he felt the unmistakable softness of the breasts, which made him tremble instinctively. Issei, what do you think you're doing? Said Issei in a grave voice and with his claws ready to devour them. Penemu, please just let us be a little hypocritical and capricious, she said, hugging Issei's left side, feeling his smell. God, she missed this feeling that her husband gave her, even if he didn't see it that way. Gabriel didn't say anything. She needed this urgently compared to Penemu, who had certain liberties. She couldn't do that without him ripping her head off at the slightest touch. Issei didn't say or do anything to stop them. He just let out a tired sigh, and just this once he will grant them that. 5 minutes later. Both Gabriel and Penemu had not left Issei's side. Something that made his veins stand out from anger. He had had enough of this. Issei, very well, enough, he said to get rid of the hug and saying enter the tavern. Issei along with his ex-wives saw mountains of food where Tanya and Kanade were seen eating everything on the menu. Issei, girls, we're leaving, he said to put a bag of gold coins to pay the bill for the food that Tanya and Kanade ordered since Sora and Runa only ate their salad. Already at the inn. Everything was a deafening silence since Issei's girls did not know how to feel when seeing Issei's first women, but Tanya and Kanade felt a little sad knowing that Issei had not told them that he had a partner, and they lowered their heads, causing their eyes to darken. Issei, who was already going to lie down in the middle with his partners and tell Gabriel and Penemu to sleep on the floor. He saw how in Tanya and Kanade's eyes there was sadness but mostly disappointment, so a him? And as if that were not enough, they stood together so as not to see him in the face. Okay, that was somewhat disappointing coming from them, but he couldn't blame them. He hadn't told them anything about his ex-wives, and of course when they were on the way to the inn he spent his time remembering every damn detail he did with his ex-wives, and if he hadn't done something stupid like he did with Gabriel and Penemu, sighing in relief that he hadn't done something crazy, but returning to reality and the situation that presents itself now. Issei, I think I'll sleep on the floor today, he said to put a pillow and a blanket to spend the night. Sora, why are you going to sleep on the floor, he said doubtfully. Runa, calm down brother, if he wants to sleep on the floor, let him sleep on the floor, she said, smiling to reassure her sister, because unlike Sora, she could notice the tension that Kanade and Tanya had with Issei, and apparently they wanted space. Gabriel and Penemu, knowing the tension that their arrival had caused and what was affecting those two women, could only sigh with regret. Not that they wanted this. Well, maybe Gabriel, but Penemu, she would at least give Issei his space and not get involved in something that does not concern her. Tanya and Kanade didn't say anything. They were just pretending to be asleep, but they didn't expect Issei to do that. They thought that Issei would sleep with them anyway, even if they were angry with him for not telling them about those women. The next day, Issei was waking up because the sun's rays were bothering him and swearing one of these days to devour the sun or destroy it. But before he could do anything, a sheet fell on him, and he saw that it was Tanya, who was asleep and almost receiving a tail whip. Time skip. Issei and the girls were eating at a very popular food stand. Issei, then why did you come here to this town? He said, looking at his ex-wives as they were eating a dessert that curiously was strawberry cake. Penemu, we came here to buy supplies for our trip, but tell me how it went for you, she said, asking what Issei had done in these centuries without his power. Issei, Michi, I can't complain, it's just that I was in the heroes group to recover my power because I had heard that in a cave protected by some monsters is my boosted gird, he said to continue eating. Gabriel, I must assume that the divine dividing is out in the world, he said so that Issei would nod. And because the celestial dragons have not responded, I say Drake has been quiet since we appeared. I thought he would threaten us like the last time, the angelic deity said. Issei was just silent with a shadowed look. He felt like his eyes were beginning to betray him, but like every man he repressed everything and forced himself to order his tear sacks to close the parquet. The girls, including Tanya and Kanade, who had not spoken to him because they were still angry with him, but when they saw his expression they became worried, and even more so when they smelled something salty coming from his eyes. But as quickly as it came, it left. Issei, Drake and Albion left this world. I freed them and now they are resting in peace, he said seriously, still remembering the good times his brothers had and the time it took to clear their names. It was funny how they both cried with joy. Sora, Issei, who are those celestial dragons, he said nervously for having touched on a topic he shouldn't when seeing his expression. The girls also wanted to know, and especially Tanya, since she never heard that two dragons had the title of celestial. Tanya was not going to admit it, but she felt that this title imposed respect and transmitted fear that even gave her chills. Issei, my battle companions know better, said my soul brothers were dragons that made the factions tremble. They honored their titles, Drake as the dragon of domination and Albion as the dragon of supremacy. Both had a rivalry that lasted for millennia. Even after their death they never stopped fighting to know who was the strongest. he said to his companions for the information because listening to the feats that Issei told his partners, except for Sora and Runa, that they were going little by little. Issei, after finishing telling his partners about his brothers, looked at the sky tiredly, and could swear by his existence that in the sky were the spirit of Drake and Albion laughing at him for his misfortune. Issei, damn underdeveloped iguanas, he thought with a throbbing vein on his forehead. Issei, Kanade, Tanya, I know you're angry about what happened with Gabriel and Penemu, but understand that I didn't expect them to come here, I swear, he said, to fix the problem once and for all, but being honest with himself. He didn't care about this since they were the ones who loved him, and just because of some wrong thoughts would have emotional consequences. Only they will not have those defects simply because he will not fall into that again. The thing about the law of ice. Tanya, when you were thinking of telling us, she said seriously, and Kanade also nodded, although a little sad. Issei, at one time I was going to tell them, but that time was shortened, and just to clarify, they were not my only women in my life, he said with a small frown. Sora, you are a womanizer, she said, covering her breasts, which in Issei's words is not covering anything because there is nothing there. Kanade, you had more, she said, already feeling the tears coming. Issei, to put them in context, dragons by nature seek more than one partner, he said, so that Tanya would nod since her grandfather literally had 5 dragons at his disposal. But all of them betrayed me without exception, she said, dropping the bomb. Sora and Runa were surprised. Kanade could not believe what she heard, and both she and the fairies quickly looked at the 2 new members of their group, who simply lowered their gaze a little, remembering things from the past. How each faction looked at them after the discovery of all those years of contempt, of looks of hate towards them, even knowing that they were high-ranking beings of their factions. Penemu remembered how the men of her faction did not look at her even if she was their superior. Azazel did not speak to her, nor did his other brothers. Letting out a sigh of resignation, she took her cup of coffee again. For Gabriel, it was worse, all those looks that the demons and fallen angels gave him along with the dragons, which was the worst when he left the battle stadium when he lost. The dragons looked at her with palpable hatred. They really hated her to death. If the melted rocks that were under the claws of those dragons plus the growls they emitted were an indication of their contained anger, he shook his head, bringing out those memories of the past. Tanya, how many did you have in total? She said worriedly, since she knew that a dragon betrayed by its partner is capable of moving heaven and earth to kill them or, in the worst case, seek death through battles to the death with whoever. Issei, in total 15, he said, as if nothing was happening, causing Tanya and Kanade along with Sora and Runa to drop their jaws to the floor, and Penemu and Gabriel just blushed a little, remembering the happy moments. Tanya! Do you wait? If they betrayed you, why do you let them come? She said, not understanding anything. Issei, unfortunately I need their help to recover my power. Knowing that my power can be controlled, I need to recover it quickly if they don't want it to be used for other purposes, he said seriously, and hoping not to tell them about his marriage with her dash. Kanade, and why do they say they are your wives if they betrayed you? She said, pointing accusingly. Issei, crap. Well, Gabriel's father was powerful, but what made them fear him were his sealing tricks and creation of divine weapons and divine contracts, and having a goddess of marriage marry us didn't help my situation, he said, sighing in resignation. They had planned everything since he started dating them. They made sure that if something happened to him, or them, no matter what dimension or reality, or timeline, they would always be husband and wife. Luckily I only made that special marriage with those 2. Can you imagine all my exes here demanding that I get back with them using the same tactic as those 2? It doesn't matter if I kill them, they will come back again and again, he said for Kanade and Tanya to nod, processing the information. Issei, well, now that everything is settled, I need a dagger just in case, and some equipment for Gabriel, he said, so that she would look at him strangely. I say this because if they cancel our powers with a blocking barrier, you will have nothing to defend yourself with, even if you are a seraph, he said as he continued eating. Gabriel, do you worry about me? What redo? He said with a look that Issei remembered on his honeymoon. Issei was bursting with anger at the thought of not killing her. It seemed that hanging out with Penemu too much was affecting her. Who the hell is she kidding? She was already a whore when she betrayed him, and hanging out with Akeno at that time didn't help the situation. Penemu touched Issei's shoulder, making him look at her, and seeing that she shook her head, saying it wasn't worth it. already on the road to a blacksmith shop. Issei and the girls were walking calmly, only this time the only one who wasn't calm was Issei. The reason? Well, he was being hugged by the fairy sisters who were somewhat afraid of humans. Runa, how horrible, there are too many humans here, they can't find out that my sister and I are fairies. Be very careful, Sora said, warning his sister while hugging Issei tighter, which is already making him uncomfortable. Sora, don't worry, I promise that this time I will protect you no matter what happens, he promised his sister. Issei, protect her from maybe I'm painted or he thought with a drop of anime-style sweat. They were walking peacefully until two men appeared and shouted, scaring the fairies. Man 1/2, my Lady Tanya. Welcome! They exclaimed with a military pose. Tanya, you're here again, you're bored, said Tanya with a tired face. Man 1/2. Yes. They said at the same time. Man 2. When he broke my striker partner's nose that time I got depressed and didn't want to continue fighting, but when I found out He couldn't finish the sentence because his partner elbowed him, sending him away, surprising the girls with that action. Man 1, my Lady Tanya, it is an honor that you have beaten me. For that reason we wanted to show you respect, he said firmly to his word. All this made Tanya have an arrogant smile. Tanya, well, if we have no remedy, when they get stronger we will fight again, she said, still smiling with superiority. Man 1/2. Yes, my Lady Tanya, they said while bowing to her. Being seen by the girls who got a drop of sweat anime style, but then they see Kanade who went to a fruit stand and the old woman had given her an apple for having helped her a few days ago. Issei, okay, let's go, he said to drag his girls who complained a little about that, making Penemu and Gabriel laugh a little. Penemu, who was walking next to Issei. They are always restless, said the previous Grigori cadre. I don't know if I wrote it right or wrong, I commented if I did it wrong. Issei, more or less, but that's how things are. Look, we're here, he said, to see a blacksmith shop. Kanade, they say it's the best weapons store in town, said Kanade, who had heard rumors about that store. Tanya, well, let's go in, she said so they could follow her to the store. When they entered they saw a pile of swords, helmets, axes, spears and shields, and at the counter there was a dwarf. Dwarf, welcome, said a serious voice that made the fairy sisters a little intimidated. Issei, we only came for weapons and protection, he said seriously. Dwarf, choose what you like, he said as he continued polishing the sword he had in his hand. Kanade, that salesman is a little scary, he said, whispering in Tanya's ear just so she could hear him. Tanya, of course dwarves are never in a good mood, she said, so the dwarf gave Tanya and Kanade an intimidating look that scared the feline. Issei, a dwarf armorer, interesting, he said, but Runa called him, and when he looked at her she had a whip that disconcerted him. Runa, Issei, how about wearing this? She said, cracking the whip. Issei, a whip? He said with doubt, since as long as he can remember he never used a whip for combat. Sora, but Runa, Issei doesn't know how to use a whip, he clarified to his sister. Runa, but it's typical of tamers, she said, making people fantasize about a half-naked Issei with a seductive look. Obey me or prepare for punishment, and I'm sure it has more uses, she said with stars in her eyes, and her sister Sora was ashamed of that, and her mind began to betray her, so she began to fantasize too. Sora, Runa, that's too much, he said while blowing smoke, and finally covered his body with his hands. You are a pervert, Issei, I wouldn't do those things. What they didn't know was that Issei was watching them, already knowing what they were thinking. Runa's eye twitched, but when she looked behind him she saw how Gabriel was smiling like he used to do when he was perverted, and the blood coming out of his nose didn't help at all. And Penemu, because she was already fantasizing about him more with the look he gave her. Tanya and Kanade had blushed at atomic levels, and it didn't help that they laughed from time to time. Issei, I'm surrounded by pure perverts, he thought with irritation and wondering if he was like that, and he was sure that his brothers would have answered him with a yes. Runa, what are you thinking about? You are a dirty mind, she said to see how her sister covered her face in shame and began to chase her. Sora, yeah, Runa said as she chased her away and then pushed her to the ground and started hitting her. Issei, You guys stop fantasizing, he said, looking at his partners and ex-wives who blushed with embarrassment when Issei discovered what they were thinking. Gabriel, choose your weapon, he said seriously. Gabriel nodded and went to get a sword, but he looked at it in detail, and it was nothing special until an adventurer came and grabbed a nice sword and left. Both Issei, Penemu and Gabriel noticed it. That sword had nothing special like the others. Gabriel, excuse me, the weapons you show people have nothing special, they are just for decoration, right? He said, seeing that the dwarf tensed up a little. Dwarf, be careful what you say, girl. Even so, they were made by dwarves and I have no benefit from any of them. However, he said to walk towards where there was a blanket that covered other swords, but these were in more detail. They are nothing compared to the ones I make consciously and that not everyone can recognize, said the dwarf. Gabriel, if you know how to make good weapons, why did you treat that man like that? He said doubtfully. Minute 8:12 to 9:10 or 12. Dwarf, I just have one question. How did you, your partner, and your boyfriend realize my weapons weren't worth that much? That statement made Issei's eye twitch and caused Penemu and Gabriel to laugh, but the others to become jealous. Gabriel, well, we are very good observers of details, he said with a kind smile. Dwarf, I like them and you too, young lady. I will create a weapon for you, he said, which excited everyone, but as quickly as it came, the excitement went away with the following statement. But now I have no raw material, he said regretfully. Gabriel/Penemu/Tanya/Kanade/sisters. Huh! They exclaimed, still not processing the information. In the guild. Issei, this is strange, the guild is more crowded than usual, he said seriously. Tanya, all those people look very excited, she said curiously. Kanade, hi Natalie, she said excitedly greeting the receptionist. Natalie, oh but if it's Kanade how are you, she said kindly. Kanade, okay, and you, hey, do you know why Natalie, do you know why they're making so much fuss? She said doubtfully as the girls approached the counter. Natalie, you want to know why? The hero has plans to stay in Horizon and look for new members for his team, she said in a praising manner. Kanade, he said without believing it. Tanya, those donkeys are still here, she said with a mocking look, but with repulsion towards the hero. Issei listened attentively to what Natalie said about the hero group. Being part of that group would give him fame and money. But Tanya and Kanade looked at Issei with concern for the face he had. Penemu, hey, you know something that happened with Issei and the hero group, said the cadre to their fellow fairies. Runa, we will explain it to you on the way, she said seriously, making both Penemu and Gabriel miss her. Issei, realizing that his partners were watching him with concern, just smiled a little to caress their heads. Tanya/Kanade. Ah! They exclaimed in surprise at the action. Issei, I already told you, I'm not interested in what those trash did, rather I used them, he said to continue caressing his partners. Kanade/Tanya, yeah, they said embarrassed. All of this being seen by Gabriel, who was pouting out of jealousy and crossing his arms, making his breast stand out more than abnormal, earning him several glances and the occasional nosebleed from a classy pervert who might be around. Penemu only turned her gaze away to avoid seeing such a scene that makes her jealous. Runa and Sora watched that with curiosity, but in their eyes you could see that they wanted to be petted by Issei on the head. Natalie, and speaking of team, I see new faces, she said, looking at the fairies. Sora, nice to meet you, I'm Sora, he said while hiding behind Issei. Runa, and I am Runa, nice to meet you, she said bravely, introducing herself in front of her. Natalie, my name is Natalie, nice to meet you, you are friends of Issei, she said with doubt. Issei was going to clarify that to her, but Runa got ahead of him. Runa, and no, we are not only friends of Issei, we have a much more intimate relationship with him, she said while blushing a little while her sister looks at her as if she were drugged, and Natalie got scared. Issei, why do these things happen to me? Seriously, it's because I was very perverted in the past, or fate loves to screw me, he thought while sighing tiredly. Natalie, hey Issei, you adopted more young and pretty girls, and on top of that they are girls, she said accusingly. Runa, humans are so funny, don't you believe it? She said to her sister, who looked at her seriously. Natalie, and who are they? she said with doubt as she saw two women behind Issei who hurt her pride as a woman when she saw such a bust. She began to compare hers with those girls and realized that the difference was abysmal. Penemu, my name is Penemu, nice to meet you, and I joined Issei's team, he said, introducing himself. Gabriel, nice to meet you, I'm Gabriel, Issei's wife, she said bluntly as she said that out loud, and to top it off, she did it in the presence of Issei, who had his claws ready to slit her throat. What's wrong? Did I say something I shouldn't have? She said, smiling innocently. Everyone was silent because of what Gabriel said. Natalie blushed with embarrassment, and Tanya and Kanade only had veins on their foreheads from anger, and Penemu shook her head, disappointed for her friend and sister. Issei, growling, he growled with contained anger. Calm down, Issei, you need her alive, then kill her, he thought, and then calmed down. Issei, anyway, I came because I want to accept this job, he said, to deliver the mission poster. Natalie, I see, finding material for the gun's armory, and he wants you to do it, she said doubtfully. Issei just nodded. Flashback. Dwarf, guns to make special weapons. It is essential that you have something with mithril, he said to clarify the situation. Kanade, mithril said without knowing what it is. Penemu, that's right, it's been proven that weapons made with mithril last a lifetime. It's a shame that it's a very unusual mineral, he said, explaining to his companion. Kanade, damn demon, I was going to say that, she thought, pouting angrily and looking away. Guns, I didn't worry about that, my ancestors left me a flat mithril mine, but lately I haven't been able to extract any mithril from that place, he said seriously. Kanade, it must be because you have already extracted everything, she said doubtfully. Gabriel, no, that would be impossible. If I had used it all up, I would have seen it diminish little by little and it would not have suddenly disappeared, he said, giving his analysis. Kanade, I understand now, she said smiling. Guns, without mithril I can't make weapons worth having. I'm sorry, he said apologetically. Issei stared at the ceiling for a moment, thinking about everything they said in conversation. Tanya, how about you share with us what you're thinking, honey, she said as she hugged him, pressing their breasts together, taking Issei out of his world as he looked at her with doubt. Kanade, you can't hide it, she also said, hugging Issei. Tanya, it seems that you want to do something. Remember that we will go with you, we will never leave you, she said with a charming smile while giving him a kiss on the cheek, causing Issei to open his eyes slightly, but his surprise increases when he feels Kanade's lips on his cheek. While Gabriel and Penemu had memories of Vietnam, the fairies smiled at them in agreement. Issei, fine, just don't give me that look, I'll let us investigate that mithril mine, he said seriously. Guns, fine. But before you leave, could you let me see your sword, since from the moment you came in I could feel something special about it, he said, looking at the sword that was sheathed around Issei's waist, who only nodded to unsheath it and hand it to the dwarf so he could see it. Tanya trembled at the sight of the sword and growled at the sword as if it were an animal. Gabriel's sad face still has Ascalon, she thought, surprised. Penemu, she still has that dragon-slaying sword. I wouldn't be surprised if she felt danger, she thought, looking at Tanya, who was on high alert. Guns, incredible. I don't know what material it's made of. Besides being a sacred sword, it must be special, or some god must have created a defect. My respects to its forger, he said, respecting the wonder of the sword. After his sword was returned to him, Issei proposed to the dwarf that they let him investigate the lack of mithril in the mine. End of flashback. Already outside the guild. Kanade, I thought Gans was a stubborn, grumpy dwarf, but I see that he did care about his weapons, said the feline. Issei, yes, but he said that he will make a special weapon for Gabriel. Walking like that, he said seriously. All yes, they said excitedly. Moments later. Already on the way to the mine, the girls followed Issei's steps calmly. Tanya, the mine is closer than I thought, she said happily. Penemu, well, this way we don't have to carry a lot of things, she said, carrying a small bag. Kanade, yes, it seems like an excursion, rather than an adventure, she said happily. Issei, true, but it seems that they can't keep up with us, he said, turning back and seeing how Sora and Runa were about to faint. Sora, everyone calm down, I can do this, she said, tired and sweaty with spiral eyes. Runa, forget it, don't act strong, Sora, we're about to hang up our wings, she said, already feeling her body melting. Issei, calm down, there's a lake nearby. I'll take you there to cool off, he said, carrying Sora on his back and Runa in front. The sisters blushed but said nothing out of embarrassment. Sora/Runa, thank you, they said in a whisper that only Issei heard. Already at the lake? Oh, wow! They said, surprised. Issei, I saw this lake on the map and I thought it would be a good idea to cool off, said the black-haired man with little interest he could muster. Kanade, since we are here, why don't we get involved, she said happily. Tanya, what a great idea, Kanade said, happy with that idea. Sora/Runa, sure, it will refresh us, they said at the same time. Penemu/Gabriel, we confirm with all devotion, said their ex-wives. Issei, fine, but stop making that face, he said to put the backpacks near a rock where they can be seen. They all said happily, long live! And then watched as their ex-wives quickly stripped, remaining as God brought them into the world. Penemu, well, cool off, she said happily as she stretched her arms, making her breasts bounce. Gabriel, you're right, sister. She also said how God brought her into the world. Note, imagine her without clothes since Wattpad blocked the images so that you don't see them, but I do. Damn, Wattpad is a shitty girl. If these days I saw an image of Celestia from Human MLP that was really hot, and that's only censoring the nipples and between the legs while she was bucking me, I only covered them a little. Tanya! Hey! What are you doing that in front of Issei, she said to try to cover them up. Gabriel, what's wrong with him? He's seen us naked many times, he said, not seeing the problem. Penemu, true, hey Issei, you'll check the perimeter in case there's a pervert here, right? She told her husband. Issei, yes, but it was not necessary to do that in front of them, he said, looking at the fairies who had their eyes rolled back in their heads at seeing such a chest. Well, Tanya, Kanade, enjoy while I check the perimeter, she said to leave her backpack next to the girls. Kanade, moo, I wanted him to see me too, she said with a pout to take off her clothes and get into the lake. The others followed after that. With Issei. Issei was prowling the forests, but every creature that smelled or saw him ran away. Issei, seriously, those women haven't changed one bit. At least Penemu has her limits, but that angel doesn't know the word discreet, he said, annoyed, remembering what he said in the guild and how everyone began to see him with hatred and envy. Issei, having verified that there was no one there, went to the other end of the lake to bathe as well. With the girls. Penemu, ah, how refreshing, she said as she sat in shallow water, but unknowingly her breasts were floating in the water under the gaze of the sisters. Gabriel, you're right, sister, although I would like Issei to bathe with us like in the old days, she said, somewhat depressed. Tanya, how come Issei forgave them, she said with doubt, being the center of attention. After they did it to him, I was surprised that he wasn't dead, she said seriously. Gabriel, I think you don't understand, but Issei hates us to death, but more so once he almost ripped my head off for simply being in his presence. It was thanks to Penemu that it didn't happen, he said sadly. But they felt the sisters' gazes. Kanade, what's going on? He said doubtfully. Sora, no, it's not that. It's just that you have very big breasts, and especially you too, she said, pointing at Penemu and Gabriel, who just laughed at that, remembering how some pages of Issei's ex-harem fought with them for their two big reasons. Tanya, you think so? She said, grabbing one of her breasts. Runa, of course I think so, they are huge, especially those of Gabriel and Penemu, she said indignantly. While the two of us said sadly. Sora, because we are so different, she said sadly too. Penemu, I had forgotten that Issei likes big breasts, she said gracefully. Tanya, seriously, she said, looking at her chest and seeing that it was moderately large but that it would continue to grow when she reached adulthood. Sora, tell me how I can make you grow as much as you beg me, he said, grabbing Kanade by the shoulders. Kanade, they will grow in time, he said to calm her down if it weren't for Tanya. Tanya, yes or maybe not, she said mockingly, causing Runa to explode with jealousy, chasing Tanya to throw water on her. Ha 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 ha, you don't catch me. Sora, Runa, please behave yourself, she said, but her sister splashed her, making her the pursuer now. They all laughed, but suddenly Penemu took out his bident to stick it near Kanade's tail. Tanya, what's happening? They're attacking us, she said, looking around. The others were on guard in case someone appeared. Penemu, not only was Kanade going to be bitten by a fish, she said to take the bidet out of the water to reveal a damn fish, which Penemu would throw away. But suddenly a tremor was heard, and inside the trees Issei came out in his dragon form, but he was something small like the size of an elephant. Issei had gone inside to cool off. Tanya, that's Issei, she said with a little blush. Kanade, how majestic, she said in wonder with stars in her eyes. The sisters said, fascinated. Incredible. Penemu, Issei, could you come here? She shouted to her husband to come with them, but to her surprise and that of Gabriel, Issei looked at them to approach them. Penemu expected to be ignorant, or something like that. Issei, Acnologia, what do you want? He exclaimed in a deep voice, making Tanya shiver. His voice conveyed danger and death, apart from being imposing. Kanade, calm down, Issei, we just wanted to see you up close, she said as she climbed onto Issei's back. Yujusui, the first feline spirit to ride a dragon, she said to pull herself from Issei's head. After a while the girls split up riding on Issei's back. He began to glow, and then shrink, revealing a naked Issei in the middle of Gabriel and Penemu, who predicted this action and stood at his sides. Issei, how refreshing it was, he said as he stretched, being seen by the sisters who turned their gaze. Tanya, you're still just as handsome, love, she said, planting a passionate kiss on his lips. Kanade, I want to, she said, to kiss him too. Issei didn't say anything, he just responded to his partner's kiss. Issei, okay girls, it's time to go, he said so that they would nod, but the first ones to leave were the fairies, who didn't want Issei to see them and created a wall of water. Then Tanya and Kanade followed. Issei was about to leave, but he felt the grip of his ex-wives and sighed with tiredness. Issei, now what he wants, knowing that they wanted something from him, but feeling the breasts of both women made his body react to them. Penemu, we did so much damage to you that now you react negatively to female contact, she said, seeing how she had her claws in position on their necks. Issei didn't say anything, he just stared blankly, ignoring what they were saying to him. Gabriel, we just wanted to ask for your forgiveness, and please I hope you give us a chance, he said so that she and Penemu nodded to get closer to his cheeks and kiss him. A minute passed, and they expected some cut or dismemberment, but nothing happened. They just felt a hug around their waists, making them smile happily when they saw that they would have another chance to hug Issei so that his head was between their breasts. After a while, the others came out as well. Issei, you'll have to prove it to me, he said in a whisper that only they heard. Gabriel/Penemu's sad face, we promise you, they thought with devotion. They continued like this until they reached the blacksmith's mine and saw that there were bandits extracting the mithril. Chapter 7, Tamer vs. Dragon, Conspiracy and the Prince? After that moment with the girls at the lake, I had already arrived at the mine. Kanade, Issei, aren't we going in? She said in a low voice. Tanya, you may see thieves, she said seriously. Sora, is that why we're guarding the entrance? Runa, yes, the thieves are surely inside the mithril mine. At that point, Penemu noticed something strange about a bird that was flying over them. Penemu, Issei, look up, said seriously. The others followed his example. Issei, who would have thought, they have a tamer, he thought with irony. But then they see some thieves coming out of the mine with weapons in hand. Issei, we have to take them down, but I want to ask them something, so he carefully said to his girls. Tanya/Kanade, at your command, she said firmly. 3 Doritos later. The thieves are seen knocked out by Tanya and Kanade. Issei and the other girls had a drop of anime-style sweat. Issei, I said take them down, not knock them out, he said to his girls with a flat face. Tanya, you're wrong. He collided with my fist, said Tanya, trying to make an excuse. Issei, they are hopeless, he said with a sigh. Sora, Runa, you can get information from him by searching his memories, he said, looking at the fairies. Sora, yes. Fairies have special magic to do that, the little fairy informed. Runa, Leave it in our hands, she said confidently. The sisters stood on either side of the thief and placed their hands on his head. Runa/Sora, memory search, they said at the same time. A magic circle appeared and they saw in the memories of the poor thief. Sora, Issei was right. They are stealing the minerals, she said seriously. Runa, they look like adventurers, she said, just as seriously as her sister. Issei, they are adventurers just like us, he said thoughtfully out loud. Sora, okay. Were we of any help? He asked his lord timidly. Issei, yes, very helpful. Thank you, girls, he said, congratulating them. But Runa interrupted him. Runa, in that case, pat our heads, she said, raising her hand. And her sister nodded fervently. Issei, what? He said with doubt. Sora, Kanade, and Tanya say they love it when you pet them, she said happily, putting her hands together. Runa, we want to feel the same way too. Issei, I think they're going to be disappointed, but well, I'll do it, he said resignedly. Good job, girls. The sisters were so happy that even Runa squealed with happiness. Runa! That feels so good, I'm already very happy, said Runa, very happy to be caressed. Sora, my heart feels better now, Sora said, also happy. While Kanade and Tanya were in a corner trying to hide their jealousy. Penemu, they had to talk about Issei's caresses, right? Penemu said sarcastically, crossing his arms. Gabriel just pouted angrily for not being the one to receive her husband's affection. Kanade/Tanya, we regret it, they said at the same time, crying comically. Moments later, we see Issei and his girls in the mines hatching a plan to find out how many bandits are in the cave. Issei, well, let's get ready. We're going to enter the mine. They've probably already detected us, he said with his stoic expression. Tanya, it's true, she said, crossing her arms. Kanade, but how did they find out about us? She said doubtfully. Issei, they were watching us from the sky, but they also had a sensor. Since the movements of that bird we saw almost at the entrance of the mine were strange, there must surely be a tamer among them, he said seriously. Inside the mine. Adventurer 1, those we sent to see have not returned, he said curiously. Adventurer 2, they were defeated, he said, looking at his hand that came out of the circle of the pact. Adventurer 1/2, he. Adventure 1, what do we do? She said a little desperate. Adventurer 2, we can't let them discover us. Let's finish them off, he said with contained anger. With Issei and the girls. They had already entered the mine, but they did not find anything relevant but with their guard up except for Issei, and for now his ex-wives. Issei, be careful, girls, Issei said to his women of this world until he saw a red glow approaching. Issei/Penemu/Gabriel, a fireball, a very basic spell, they thought without being surprised. That was such a basic spell that one knew how to counter it. In Issei's case, the spells did not affect him. Tanya and the others were surprised by the sudden spell approaching Issei, but Sora and Runa stepped in to block it. Sora, Rune, she said seriously. Runa, we'll take care of it, she said confidently. Both sisters activated a magic circle blocking the attack. Adventure 2, did they block you? He said with genuine surprise. Adventurer 1, again. I order my partner, who just nodded, to recreate the attack. Sora, let's cancel it, he said, glancing at his sister. Runa, okay, she said confidently as they looked at each other out of the corner of their eyes. We'll show Issei what we can do, so he can pet our heads, she said as a blue aura surrounded the two of them. Issei, don't count on it, he thought with a chibi face. At that point, some green magic ribbons with runes got tangled around the two adventurers, while the one who was about to throw another fireball had her spell cancelled, while two adventurers with bows shot at her, but Tanya eliminated the arrows with her fire breath. Kanade, take this, Naya said to kick him in the face, knocking him down, while Tanya knocked the other down with a tail whip. Runa, impressive, said Sora, very impressed by the teamwork. Sora, what speed, she said, fascinated. Gabriel, we're done, Issei said Gabriel as he tied up the adventurer along with Penemu, who was tying up the other who was making weird sounds. Penemu, Stay still if you don't want me to squeeze your arms and legs any tighter, said Penemu as he tightened the knots in the rope even more. Adventurer 2. Yes, more, my lady, stronger. How delicious! The adventurer moaned with pleasure while blushing, until he realized that everyone looked at him strangely. It is not what it seems, he said, embarrassed. His friends looked at him with disappointment and foreignness, and the girls looked at him with disgust. Issei, say goodbye to your dignity that flew away, and I recommend that you only be a masochist with your girlfriend and not with my ex-wife, he said to give him a slap in the head that left him seeing stars. Penemu, because every time I have to tie someone up, they have to have weird fetishes, she said, sighing. The others just patted her in comfort. Issei, really? As I remember, last time on our anniversary you asked me to tie you up bondage style and I didn't hear you complain. You even asked me to give you more punishment and pleasure, he said with no interest in what he just said. Penemu blushed with shame and anger and began to hit Issei in the chest, calling him an idiot. Penemu! Fool! Idiot! That was a secret between us, she said, embarrassed, hiding her face in her hands to avoid the judging look of the girls who didn't know that, but she had to avoid the look Gabriel gave her. Flashback. The young couple was in a very intimate moment in a 5-star hotel, but the strange thing is that the woman is tied up. Penemu. Penemu moaned as she felt Issei's tighten on her juicy, round ass while a hand squeezed her breast, making her moan more with pleasure, and the fact that some ropes were between her crotch didn't help. Image to its respective creator. Issei, you want more, he said in a low voice as he kissed Penemu's neck while tightening his grip on the rope, causing Penemu to shudder with pleasure. Penemu, yes, Issei-sama, I want more, she said with heart-shaped pupils. Issei, using his ability to tear clothes, ended up tearing Penemu's clothes and his own, but he never let go or loosened the grip of his lasso on Penemu, and instead he prepared to penetrate her. Penemu, hiya! I moaned while I stuck my tongue out in pleasure. I felt my Issei begin to ram me mercilessly. Maz, I want to feel your milk in me, I said, already losing myself in my lust. Issei, as you wish, my beautiful Detenchi fallen angel, I said as I continued to penetrate her fiercely while I hear her moan with pleasure, making me more excited. And so the days passed in the hotel making love according to Penemu, and for Issei, well, nothing, since he learned a fetish from his future wife, and it's not like that will affect him in the future. Then flashback. Issei, yes, just like her, he thought as he saw how the adventurer with the rare fetish was verbally attacked by his male companions. Kanade, Issei, what is bondage? He said with doubt, and Tanya along with Sora and Runa also wanted to know, but Tanya and Kanade felt that it was something perverted when Issei said, pleasure. They wanted to know what that was. Issei, Penemu and Gabriel looked at each other, and said at the same time. Issei, Penemu, Gabriel. We'll tell them when we finish the mission, they said at the same time, not wanting to disturb them, especially the two fairies who were too young to know that. The others just nodded, but they still had doubts about what bondage was. Issei, only you are left, he said as he looked at the adventurer who seemed to be the leader. Adventurer, leader, who are you and who sent you? He said, annoyed. Issei, that doesn't interest you, trash, he said seriously, provoking the anger of the adventurer leader, who took out a dagger. Adventurer, leader. Shut up. Damn brat, he said to lunge and try to stab Issei, but Issei blocks him and connects a blow to his stomach, knocking the air out of him, causing him to fall to the ground due to lack of air and pain. Issei, just give up, you have nothing left, he said seriously. Adventurer, leader, I refuse. Until that damn old man pays, come Bigimo! He shouted, and a kind of minotaur monster appeared from a cave. Tanya, impossible! I tamed a dino monster, shocked. Runa, don't monsters hate humans? She said doubtfully. Issei, taming a monster requires a lot of magic and skill, but seeing as how this guy is, he lacks both. I guess he tamed him when he was young, he said seriously. Adventurer, leader, correct, now finish them. Bigimo, said the leader arrogantly. The Bigimo obeyed the order and launched itself towards them, but the girls reacted quickly and dodged the blow of the Bigimo that hit the ground, causing the mine to have a few small collapses. Tanya, this looks bad, said Tanya worriedly. Sora, The cave is collapsing, he said in fear. Issei, girls, get everyone out of here, he said while equating the bigimo. Kanade, but I said I was worried. Issei, don't worry, I'll be fine. Penemy, Gabriel, take care of bigimo. I have to knock out some trash, he said seriously. The girls obeyed the order and quickly left the mine. Penemy, this reminds me of the old days, he said, stretching his arms. Gabriel, you sound like a retired old lady, Gabriel said between laughs, bringing out a vein of anger on Penemy's temple. Gabriel, let's begin, he said to disappear in a burst of speed just like Penemy. Both coordinated and began to surround the bigimo, causing him to become confused until a blow to the jaw sent him to the sky, almost touching the roof of the mine. The one who hit him was none other than Gabriel, and a Penemy with her wings extended flew waiting for the bigimo, who did not take long to arrive and connected a blow to his face, sending him to the ground where Gabriel was waiting for him with a kick charged with light. Gabriel, take this. He said this to kick him in the stomach, sending him towards Penemy, who was waiting for him with the Desmo's spear. Penemy! Action, Hammer of the Apocalypse! Said Penemy, making the spear shine a dark blue. When the attack connected with the bigimo, it had disintegrated as soon as they fell to the ground, causing a large crater due to Penemy's attack. Issei, you named an attack after me, he said with a chibi face while holding the leader unconscious. Penemy, yes. You like it, I made it in your honor, she said, smiling, waiting for a compliment from Issei only for it to be completely ignored, making her sigh in sadness. What can I expect from him? He is still somewhat resentful towards me, she thought the last thing. Gabriel, he has ignored me throughout this fight, he didn't even care if he hurt me or not, it seems he still hates me, he thought sadly. Some time later. Everyone was gathered in Gantz's armory, telling him everything they knew about the group of adventurers. Gantz, I see, it's a shame, he said with resignation. I decided that not everyone was worthy of them. I should have made them with all my soul regardless of the bearer, he said with disappointment in himself. Issei, come on, don't be like that old man, your skills as a blacksmith are exceptional, he said, trying to comfort the old man, but as he said, he was trying, that a creature like him doing this was unthinkable. Gantz, a child not even half his age, trying to comfort an old man, said humorously. The girls, if you knew how old he is, you wouldn't even come close to his age, thought in unison. Gantz, okay young lady, what kind of weapon do you want? He asked the angel who was in the back with the girls. Gabriel, I want a sword, he said, smiling. Also I want you to carry this, he said while whispering in the old man's ear. Gantz, that's what you want, he said doubtfully, seeing how the seraph nodded. When everyone was about to leave, Issei told the girls to wait, while he spoke to the old man in private for a moment. Issei, take it, he said, handing him a dragon scale that was curiously black with blue patterns. Gantz, this is it, he said, surprised by what he had in his hands. Issei, yes, integrate it when you are forging Gabriel's sword, he said seriously to withdraw. Don't tell him, he said to send him a death look, making the old man nod. Gantz, my lips are sealed with iron, he said. Already at night, Aryan Mansion. You see a guy who was nervous until he saw some papers being thrown on the floor. Aryans, you failed, she said with disinterest, making him surprised and asking what he was failing. You say you are a tamer, but you have only tamed one animal. Right. How do you plan to supply us? She said, making a movement of her hand indicating that he should leave. The guy started saying that he would be helpful since he can tame bears, wolves and monkeys. Aryans, and a great species, he said, staring at him. Tamer, it is completely impossible, said the adventurer. Arios, I see, that means you're worse than him, he said, making the adventurer wonder. The least we were looking for is someone who can fight alone and who can supply us without problems, he said next as the adventurer retreated. Mina, that was the last thing I reported to Aryans. Aryans, what a waste of time, why are there so many useless people in the world? He asked out loud. Mina, the man she had just fired more than met the requirements, and not just him, many competent people had applied for the position, she thought carefully. Arios, go rest, mine, he said, causing the healing mage to retreat. Left alone, Arian would open a drawer in his desk, revealing a ring surrounding him in a dark aura. Arios, first I have to take care of a matter, he said seriously. I will use it and eliminate Issei, he said with pure hatred. Unbeknownst to Arians, he was being watched by Issei's darkness dragon, who could only smile macabrely. The next day, Issei was walking through the streets of the town with the fairy sisters, while in the Incarnate and Tanya were sleeping, while in the other bed was Penemiu, who was also sleeping. Runa, Issei, what is that? She said doubtfully, pointing to a hot dog vendor. In the end the sisters wanted one, and Issei ended up buying it for them. Issei, maybe my redhead problem is also related to that of Lolis, he thought with a drop of sweat, since he had a bag full of hot dogs. But looking at them eating happily, but it's worth it, he thought the last thing with an imperceptible smile. After a while the sisters had already finished the hot dog. Runa, I ate it all, I have nothing left, she said, crying comically. Sora, I wish I could have savored it more, she said, as did her sister. Issei, calm down, we'll go back with the others so they can all eat. By the way, Gabriel, what are you doing behind them? He said, while the sisters looked at him strangely until Gabriel appeared from behind the tree with a stew. Gabriel, you forgot me just like the others, you were going to leave and you didn't wake us up, he said with a pout. Issei, as far as I know, you were awake, I was just pretending to be asleep, he said without interest. Gabriel, you are bad, he said, crossing his arms, making his breasts look bigger, attracting everyone's attention. The women felt humiliated and the men were like dogs in heat. Issei, anyway, let's go get the others, he said as he left, followed by the fairies and the seraph. Issei and the girls were walking towards the inn. Runa and Sora walked in front, while Issei and Gabriel walked together. Gabriel wanted to grab her hand, but a sharp look stopped her, and she just let out a sigh of resignation. At least he didn't push her away from her side. That's progress if you asked her. Until he heard a guy stopping him and saw that the guy looked like a noble. Issei, great, a spoiled child, he thought, irritated with this type of humans. Hey you, he said, stopping them. What are your names? He said, looking at them in an unholy way. Villagers with daughters and girlfriends tried to hide their partners so they would not be taken away. Runa, what's that about? Runa said, very nervous because of the look that human was giving her. Come on, I asked you a question, he said seriously. Sora, my name is Sora, he said timidly. Runa, my name is Runa, she said nervously. Sora and Runa, what beautiful names, he said, and then he looked at the girl who was next to Issei and he couldn't help but drool in front of everyone because of the beauty before his eyes. And I can know the name of this beautiful goddess, he said while taking a look at Gabriel's bust, who smiled sweetly but with a resulting vein. Gabriel, my name is Gabriel, he said with a forced smile. And Issei looked at him seriously. Well, the three of them don't look bad at all, I like them, he said, smiling in a perverted way. They're mine, he said haughtily. Runa/Sora. Gabriel, pathetic, he thought with disgust. He would not let another man or woman touch her again. He would not make the same mistake twice. Issei, he had to be a noble, a sissy, and useless if his guards weren't there, he thought seriously. This guy was a bad person to feel the negativity and bad intentions towards the three girls who were with him. Chapter 10, Coup d'etat, the Slave Goddess and the Ring. We continue where we left off. Well, they are mine, he said arrogantly. Sora. He says he'll own us as soon as we meet. This human is scary, she said, scared with a pale face. Runa, are you stupid or what? We're not going to say yes. She said the same as her sister. Gabriel, I'm sorry, but I'm married, she said, showing her wedding ring. Do you dare to refuse? How interesting, he said, something excitedly. Sora, Runa and Gabriel, my desire for you grows bigger, he said with a somewhat strange voice that for Issei that guy was somewhat excited. Issei, seriously, this human is sick, he thought with anger, seeing how this trash dares to look at his companions. Issei, who are you? He said with doubt, and standing in front of his companions. Edgar, HMP, my name is Edgar, from where, he said arrogantly. I am the son of the Lord of Horizon. Issei, I should care who your father is, he said as if nothing were happening, earning an angry look from Edgar. Edgar, you are just a commoner. If you offer yourselves to me, you will have endless luxuries, he said, offering his hand. Sora, we already told you no, he exclaimed, already tired of this human. Runa, our only lord is Issei, she said, annoyed but following behind Issei as protection. Gabriel, I already said no. I'm with my man, he said, hugging Issei by the neck, making Issei twitch in his eye. Imagine that Issei isn't crying. Edgar, so, are you still resisting? He said, snapping his fingers, ordering his knights to surround him. Give them to me right now, or would you like me to hurt them? He said confidently. Issei, I refuse. I will never throw them away to trash like you, he said seriously with firmness in his words. Runa/Sora, Issei said at the same time excitedly, and with a bit of blush on their cheeks. Gabriel, yes. My husband is protecting me, he thought happily, already forming reasons in his eyes. He deserves a reward, he thought with a malicious smile. For some strange reason, Issei felt a chill and didn't dare look back because he already had an idea of who it was that was giving him the chills. Edgar, HMPOK, go ahead, she said, annoyed, frowning. All the soldiers were on the ground, dying, as some had broken bones and dented armor. Pump. Issei landed a punch in the stomach of a knight, causing him to spit blood and remain in the dream world. Edgar, can't they handle a brat? He said, stomping on the head of the knight at his feet, not realizing he was unconscious. They're incompetent. Knight 1, this couple is not ordinary, sir. The woman has a force to fear, and the man, who can't even be said, ended up denting the armor of some of his companions, he said nervously. Issei, I recommend that you surrender, before I change my mind, he said seriously, taking out Ascalon and Gabriel, creating a spear of light. I will never let you have Sora and Runa, he said, sharpening his gaze, causing some knights to be afraid. Edgar gritted his teeth in anger until he began to smile sinisterly. Don't say stupid things. When I want something, I get it, he said, to give the order to his soldiers to hold the civilians hostage. The knights had a mother and her daughter, an old woman and a child, and 3 more were taking care of Edgar since the rest were unconscious and had some broken bones. Edgar, ha ha ha. Now what, trash? Give me what I want or they will pay for you, he said, leaving the threat in the air. Issei had planned to say that he couldn't care less, but the look Sora and Runa were giving him didn't help. Issei, well, I think I can show off my old tricks when I was in that ninja dimension, he thought, to crack his neck. Runa, you want us to do magic? I suggest Runa to try to help his master. Sora, we wouldn't mind being discovered, he said, the same as his sister. Issei, calm down, just trust me, he said calmly, and the sisters just nodded. Gabriel, take care of them, just in case, he ordered his ex-wife, who nodded without complaint. My answer is, I will never hand them over to trash like you, he said with a deep voice and draconic eyes, causing Edgar to freak out and the knights who were with him too. Issei, 0 signal said to freeze time and everything around him. Issei, well, I think that's how the jutsu was, he didn't say to make a hand position. Multi-shadow clone jutsu said that 6 clones would be created that disarmed the knights and had a knife on their necks prepared to kill them as they made a move when the 0 signal ends. Issei snapped his fingers and everything returned to normal. Edgar was with his mouth open in shock, seeing the same guy, but several copies and Aryans who were hiding also saw him, and could only click his tongue in anger. Issei, go away, and if I see you again I swear I'll kill you, he said seriously, releasing a bit of his murderous intent, causing the prince to urinate in fear. Edgar, you will regret having challenged me, he said angrily, but if you saw his pants you would say he was afraid. He retreated and some soldiers helped their wounded comrades. Issei, I feel like this guy will be a thorn in my side, just like Arios said, sighing. Sora, Issei, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts, he said, smiling. Runa, thank you very much, she said happily. Villager 1, thank you very much, Tamer, he said, approaching and thanking Issei. Villager 2, seriously, thank you very much. For a moment I thought he would take me with him, she said with gratitude. Girl, you are cooler than the hero, the girl said. After everyone thanked Issei, The villagers dispersed to do their things and Issei and the girls returned to the inn where Runa told him what happened. Then Issei duplicated himself and stopped those bad men, she said excitedly, telling what she saw. Tanya, I'm glad you're all okay, good heavens, and we were sleeping while that was happening, she said, disappointed for falling asleep. Issei, well, it seems that you have left me alternatives. When I was sleeping they didn't let me go out, so I created a clone while they were sleeping, he said while pointing at the bed where Issei, Kanda and Tanya were sleeping, causing the aforementioned to blush. By the way, is Penemu still asleep? He said with doubt. When everyone turned around they saw Penemu, who was still asleep, but the strange thing was that a head was sticking out behind Penemu. Gabriel with doubts thought that his friend made the same mistake again. He was quick and removed the sheets. Everyone, and when I say everyone except Issei, who just had a twitch in the eye, apart from that all the girls blushed. The reason was that Penemu was naked and was being hugged by a clone of Issei who was shirtless and was hugging her by the waist, holding her closer to him. Penemu, Issei, he said. He moaned sleepily, grabbing Issei's hand and bringing it to his chest. This action brought a vein of fury and shame to Gabriel. The fairies fainted from not being able to bear so much, and Issei's girls, who were Tanya and Kanade, also had a vein of fury and a big blush of embarrassment. Gabriel, Penemu, wake up! Gabriel shouted, making her wake up upset, and looked at Gabriel intrigued as to why he woke her up abruptly, and Gabriel just pointed to his side, and when she looked at who was there she just smiled a little. I told Issei if he could sleep with me. I think you should know that he refused at first, but he said he could be cloned, and here we are, she said as she settled back into her man's arms, making Gabriel pout in anger. After that they told Penemu everything that happened, and needless to say she got angry, since according to her that beginning reminded her of fried chicken. Issei couldn't help but laugh a little at that. Kanade, I won't forgive that thug for trying to steal them, Naya, she said in a comical way. Issei, according to what the villagers told me, he takes women and abuses them, he said seriously. Tanya, he's a piece of shit, she said angrily. Issei, well, unfortunately he is an only child, but that won't stop me. I will kill him if he keeps bothering him, he said seriously. Sora, and why don't the knights arrest him? He said, suggesting an idea. Runa, they haven't found any evidence, so they haven't done anything, she said annoyed. Tanya, well, there is no option, the mansion will burn down, she said seriously. Issei, I support your idea and emotion, but we are not going to do it. Being that kind of prince, I say that there must be a few knights who want to make a coup d'etat. Only they have not appeared, he said seriously. Besides, I say that they do not want anyone to die, right? He said, seeing that the fairies turned their heads while Kanade and Tanya looked at the ground, and Gabriel just nodded firmly to that idea, and Penemu did not care much. At the Fromware mansion. In an office you could see Edgar and his father, who was telling him something important. Edgar, calm down, Dad. I'll take care of everything, he said to reassure his father. When his father left, he frowned and looked at his most loyal knight. Gillet. As for today. Gillet, yes. As always, if anyone complains, I'll take care of it, he said seriously while Edgar nodded in approval. Edgar, by the way, one more thing. Investigate that Issei guy. If you can bring it to me, he said to throw him a bag of gold coins. That's for today. If you bring me Issei, I'll give you an extra, he said seriously. Gillet, I'll be back with good news, he said as he left. Edgar was left alone until he started laughing with some anger. Edgar, today he humiliated me, I will make him regret it, he said to hit the table, and his eyes will glow a dark pink color that shines a little in the darkness, showing his malice. In that he rings a small bell to call someone. At that moment, footsteps were heard, and quickly a girl with the appearance of a fox was seen, wearing dirty rags, and what looked like a slave collar was around her neck. Excuse me, said the girl with some fear, this how can I? She couldn't finish because someone had pulled her shirt very close to her, scaring her. Edgar, you're late, he said angrily, grabbing one of her ears and throwing her into his office. Didn't I tell you to come as soon as I called you? He said furiously, slowly advancing towards her. Bu, but I came running, she said, trying to justify, but Edgar didn't let her because he started to trample her. Edgar, you piece of shit, you damn monster, he said as he continued to step on her. Don't answer me, he said as he gave her a strong kick in the stomach, knocking the wind out of the poor girl. The girl only let out a few moans of pain from time to time, trying to hold on but unable to stop the tears from falling. Edgar, I love hearing you scream, he said with a psychopathic smile and a look of total madness. Sad face help, she thought with a weak thought. Someone help me, praying that any god hears her, she thought before falling into unconsciousness. Without knowing it, Edgar was being watched from a corner. There was a shadow, and within this shadow is the dragon. He looked at all this with anger in his eyes that literally began to shine and evolve. The next day. Kanade, is this where the knights are? Although I haven't done anything wrong, I'm a little nervous, she said nervously. Issei, don't worry, I'm more than enough for you. Plus Runa and Sara would draw attention, so I left them with Tanya, and just to reinforce I also left them with Penemu and Gabriel, he said, raising Kanade's head so she would calm down. Already entering the knight's den, they went to ask the receptionist. Issei, excuse me miss, he said so that the receptionist could see him, and she couldn't help but blush when she saw how handsome and hexy the man in front of her was. If I make a complaint, would you investigate it? He asked the miss. Receptionist, yes. She said with a suggestive voice, and eating Issei with her sight, Kanda had a vein come out, and just hugged Issei by the arms so that that woman understands that Issei already has a partner. The gentleman exists to maintain order in this city. Issei, in that case, I want to report Edgar, the Lord's son. He attacked us today in the square, he said seriously, making the woman sweat from nerves or fear. The king has ordered you to maintain order in the city, right? They will surely investigate it, explained the black-haired man, waiting for the lady's response. Gentlemen, that won't be necessary. I heard it was a minor argument. A gentleman with a mustache said. Let's not meddle in something so insignificant, he said haughtily. Issei, okay. This is starting to bore me, he thought, irritated with these corrupt knights. Kanade, insignificant? That man's son tried to take Sora and Runa. She couldn't continue because Issei stopped her by putting an arm in front of her. Gentlemen, slandering Mr. Edgar for something without firm evidence. It carries execution for treason, he said, arranging his mustache arrogantly, and the gentleman began to laugh. Issei, so, as for the slight argument, they have no proof that we had an argument. That makes you and your companions lying trash, or do you prefer the term Knight of Lies, he said mockingly, making the knights angry. And the captain sent one to teach him a lesson. Kanade was about to get into a fighting stance, but Issei calmed her down, saying that he would take care of it. A blonde knight watched all this helplessly and frustratedly, and thought about how to help him. Knight 2, you will regret it, brat, he said to take out his sword and slash him with his sword, but to the shock of everyone except Kanade, the sword had split in half with the mere contact with Issei's skin. What are you? He said with fear, at the same time that some knights and the captain began to sweat with fear. Issei, you're not interested in trash, he said seriously, and with some force he gave him a tremendous blow to the stomach that made him spit blood, but from the power of the blow the knight was shot into the sky, crossing the roof and losing sight of everyone who was scared except Kanade for obvious reasons. Gentlemen, what did you do to our companion? They said angrily, but afraid of being pierced by that blow. Issei, calm down, the guy is alive, he will fall in about 10 minutes, he said to retreat, but suddenly an arm falls and everyone saw it and became alarmed. Wow, it seems that before he went through the roof his arm came off when it got caught on something, he said without importance. To begin to leave calmly, being followed by Kanade. Unbeknownst to her, a blonde-haired knight with a body that many women would envy. She had seen everything and would not deny that the boy was very handsome, but she was surprised by his strength, and that filled her with hope, already having the power to launch a coup d'état, and leaving to look for him. But she stayed for a moment when she heard a scream from heaven and saw how the knight who had been sent to heaven fell abruptly to the ground, spewing blood, but he was already dead, the reason being that the fall had killed him. Moments later, Issei and Kanade were walking through the city holding hands like a couple at Kanade's request. Issei, as I expected nothing less from these humans, he said seriously. They are in cahoots with the Lord. This way they cover up their crimes easily, he said seriously. Kanade, what a horror, she said sadly, but her ears picked up a noise from an alley. Who's there? she said on guard. And from the darkness of the alley came the same female knight who had witnessed everything. Kanade, a knight? She said doubtfully. Were you following us? She said somewhat annoyed. No. Well, yes. But it's because I want to talk to you, she said a little nervously and seriously at the same time. My name is Stella in place. I am the vice captain of the Knights of Horizon, she said and introduced herself to those mentioned. Issei, vice captain? He said with doubt, undoubtedly a high rank. My name is Issei, he said in a carefree manner. Kanade, and I am Issei's partner, my name is Kanade, she said smiling as she hugged Issei's arm, surprising the knight a little, making her a little depressed. Stella, Issei, Kanade. Before I explain, let me thank you. I was told that a feline spirit and an adventurer defeated the fearsome Dark Ones, the knight said, clenching her fists. Issei, well, I don't know if the word fearsome is a term to refer to them, rather they would be useless, he thought, since those dark fangs had nothing fearsome. Stella, then, just like now, I did not fulfill my duty to protect the people. I need to count on your help. The Lord has bought most of the knights, they have already forgotten their tasks. Not only do they cover up the crimes of the Lord and his son, but they ignore the people they must protect. Our boss, Captain Gillet, is the same as the others. I would like the knights to be as they should, he said, frowning and then relaxing his expression. While I was thinking about how to do it, you appeared, he said, so that Kanade was surprised and Issei to a lesser extent. Kanade, don't say more. We will help you, she said smiling, and Issei just raised an eyebrow. He hadn't accepted any terms. What he had planned to do was destroy that castle in one go. Issei, well, if you want my help then let's make a deal, he said to extend his hand. But the knight looked at him with doubt. You thought I was going to do it for free, he said seriously. Stella, I won't help you cover up any crimes you're going to commit, she said seriously, thinking she was the same as all men. Issei, how could you think that? What I need from you is a favor. A favor between alliance partners, he said to grab her by the waist, making her blush and making Kanade jealous, and then spin her around like a dancer. It will be a favor at the time I choose and without any crime. In exchange I will help you with all my power. We have a deal. He said the last thing in a deep voice while his eyes changed to those of a dragon as he extended his hand that glowed purple. Stella was hesitant, as for some strange reason her instincts were telling her not to accept his deal, but she needed as much help as possible. She could only sigh. Stella, deal, she said seriously, closing the deal by shaking Issei's hand, who smiled a little, showing his fangs. The hands she was shaking were surrounded by a purple light with red and black rays. Kanade, what was that? She said doubtfully as she saw that some dragons bit their tails, forming an infinity, and the skies darkened. When everything was over, everything looked normal. Stella, what did you do to me? She said, looking at her body. I feel more powerful, she said as she punched the wall of a house, going through it. Issei, I told you I was going to help you, that's an advance, he said seriously, but suddenly a dragon made of darkness appeared from the alley, alerting the knight and Kanade. Calm down, it's my puppet, he said, and then charged the dragon, who looked him in the eyes. When they looked into each other's eyes for a while, Issei's face went from serious to furious. So that's what you were planning to do to Sora and Runa? I'll kill him, no, even better, I'll torture him so I can kill him later, he thought darkly. Stella, well, we need a gentleman's cleaning, she said, and then told them where they would meet. In a certain abandoned building. There was Stella and a few knights introducing themselves, and needless to say, the knights were surprised to have the great species on their side, and two knights knelt before Gabriel and began to pray, making everyone drop a drop of sweat and making Gabriel laugh nervously and embarrassed. And Issei also told them that he was also a dragon. Of course he didn't tell them that he was the very black dragon of the apocalypse. After that they were in for a few surprises, and one that she fainted because Penemu accidentally lifted her shirt up and for obvious reasons left her chest uncovered, making everyone blush, and Stella had to cover her nose so they wouldn't see her nasal discharge. But after that Issei and Gabriel went to Gansa's smithy to give Gabriel the sword. Gabriel's sword. Needless to say, Gabriel started jumping for joy, making his chest bounce. Imagine that he is jumping. Literally, Issei signaled the old man to turn around and the old man accepted the order, and then Issei brought out a small amount of killer instinct that scared those present who were there buying, but when they saw the jumps that Gabriel made they could not take their eyes off him for two main reasons. Issei, who was not going to allow this, scared them with his killer instinct, and then regretted it since Gabriel did not detach himself from him and began to cry and say that he still loved her and promised her that he will not do that stupidity again and that he will not regret it. Issei, I'm already regretting it, he thought with a vein on his forehead and with a happy Gabriel holding on to his arm. Already at night. Everyone was gathered at the base of operations, ready for the attack. There were 40 enemy soldiers at the gate, and their captain. Stella, just as you predicted, Issei said happily, looking at Issei, who was standing with his arms crossed. Runa, now we have them where we want them, she said, excited by the action. Sora, don't talk like that, the situation is quite sinister, she said nervously. Issei, okay, let's continue with the plan, he said seriously. Gelée, it is rumored that there is a warehouse on the outskirts with evidence of our corruption. How ridiculous, the captain thought. It's a complicated situation, he said with his arms crossed. Go ahead, if you see evidence destroy it, he said to advance with his squad. It's dark here, light up, he said to a soldier who was going to place the order, but a cut silenced him, immediately causing him to fall to the ground. It's an ambush. Get out quickly, he said on high alert, but the warehouse door closed. The reason was Sora and Runa, who were freezing the door. Sora, no evil knight will escape, she said seriously. Runa, we will make sure of it, she said, the same as her sister. Inside the warehouse, all the knights were dropping like flies as it seemed like mana arrows were being fired at them. In a place above the warehouse were Issei, Penemu, and Gabriel, who were the ones who launched the arrows. Stella, incredible, they are perfect, she said, impressed. Issei shoots at the Gelée captain, but he notices and repels the shot. Gelée, Stella in place, he said angrily. Stella, Gelée Strigar, give yourself up, she said seriously. At this moment my companions have occupied the knight's headquarters. And with it the evidence, she said, pointing at him accusingly. At the headquarters, the knights were seen knocked out and the receptionist with her arms raised, and at the same time she was hiding behind a knight. The reason was that Kanade and Tanya wanted to teach her a lesson, and it was because Kanade told Tanya about this receptionist, what she did to her partner, and let's say that the temperament of dragons is not something to play with. Gelée, how dare you, are you the one who spread the rumors? He said angrily. Stella, Issei, your plan so far has gone well. But she couldn't continue as Gelée interrupted her. Gelée, so you are Issei, ha 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 ha, he said and started laughing. Today is my lucky day, when I take you to Edgar. I will fix this scandal, he said, unsheathing his sword. Stella, do you give me the honor of ending this? I asked Issei angrily towards Gelée. Issei, I already gave you power, do whatever you want. I already fulfilled 75% of the deal, he said without importance. This human trash did not deserve his time. Stella, thank you, she said as she left and fell in front of the Gelée. Gelée, do you think you can beat me? He said arrogantly. You will be executed for treason. Stella, you are the one who betrayed the spirit of the knights, he said, raising his sword and pointing with it. They engaged in a sword fight where they were evenly matched, but Stella, upon receiving power from Issei, saw Gelée's attacks more easily, and not only this, she could anticipate the movements he made and counter them. Until Gelée threw the sword as a distraction to hit Stella on the cheek, but the blow did nothing to her, and with great fury she connected a devastating blow that caused her armor to break, and crashing her into the wall did not help her condition, having finished breaking the remaining armor. Stella, justice always. It will prevail, she said seriously. Issei, well done, he said, raising his thumb in approval. At Edgar's house. In his mansion, some knocks were heard, and it was not a lie since Edgar was kicking the fox girl. Edgar, did they arrest the knights? He said, annoyed as he continued kicking the girl. And that stubborn girl is the leader of the order? Damn him, he said, annoyed as he continued kicking the fox girl, who was jumping, moaning in pain. I'm so sorry, she said, crying while protecting herself. Edgar, it doesn't matter, they have few soldiers. I have more than 100 guards protecting me, he said, but then a voice came forward. It was Arians, who was wearing a hood. Arians, you think so? I asked him. Edgar, who are you? He said, stepping back in caution. Arios, a sympathizer, and I also hate Issei so just like you, he said while his eye glows purple. Edgar, Issei, he was behind this, he said nervously. Arios, that's right. He's a great tamer who has dealt with great species. You can't do anything against him, he said matter-of-factly. Edgar, large species, said Trangadu, he left with some fear. Arios, he will destroy you and end everything you love, titles, power, money, women, he will destroy everything, he said, accusing Issei of everything. Edgar, that will not happen, this city belongs to me, he said angrily, making Arians smile, who threw him a ring. What is this? He said doubtfully. Arios, I told you that he was a sympathizer of yours. That magical object brings death to its target. Use it to finish off Issei, said Arios, already excited for his headache to die. Edgar, ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. He started laughing maniacally while the fox girl continued to cry while she was unconscious, while the dark dragon began to silently heal her without Edgar or the girl noticing. Come on, we can do it. Me when a book or a chapter of anime or manga/manhwa is left in suspense. Chapter 11, The Goddess, the Demon and the Awakening of the Dragon. Somewhere in a forest a sanctuary was seen, and at the entire entrance of this sacred place, a fox girl with 3 tails was seen. How warm, I love the sun, said the girl, swinging her tails. How soft. I am very proud of the fur of my tails. How shiny, she said sleepily, but suddenly everything went dark. Someone help me, he said in a whisper. In Edgar's castle were the knights who triumphed in the coup d'état and were at the lord's house to arrest him. But the knights refused and asked for Captain Gillet to be brought. In that Tanya speaks. Tanya, don't think they are like the degenerates who were there before. Now the knights fight for justice, she said with her hands on her hips, proudly raising her chest, earning a few envious glances from the women present except Kanade. Kanade, that's right. Stella is doing it all for justice, she said, smiling in a cat-like manner. Both Kanade and Tanya gave a performance that embarrassed the vice-captain and inspired the female knights. Kanade, I knew this was going to happen, she said, putting herself on guard. Tanya, I hoped it would be like that, otherwise it would all be very boring, she said, smiling with a thirst for battle. Stella, Kanade, Tanya, thank you for everything, she said, unsheathing her sword. Kanade, you're welcome, she said, smiling. Tanya, our master likes this too, she said, smiling. In that you see a pitched battle where Stella's team had the advantage due to Kanade, Tanya and Stella herself, since she still had the powers that Issei gave her. Inside the mansion, Issei and company had entered through the basement. Issei, I'm missing a battle, he said seriously. How unfortunate. Gabriel, well, that was your idea, he said, smiling. Sora, we have to find the hostages of the Lord's Son, he said, to start searching. Issei, I feel a great magical energy, she should be here, he thought, since the information his puppet gave him was correct, then it was a great species. Runa, what do we do, Issei said, looking at his master. Issei, you will free the hostages, I will take care of the great species, he said seriously, and the fairies nodded. They will be accompanied by Gabriel as protection. The fairies nodded and Gabriel just pouted angrily and started throwing tantrums, making the fairies look at her with a drop of sweat. Issei, and this was supposed to be the most powerful seraph, he thought with disappointment towards his wife. Wait. Did I say wife in my thoughts? Okay, something is definitely very wrong with me. The fairies still looked worried about him, so Issei calmed them down by caressing their heads, making them relax and blush a little, while Gabriel continued with his tantrum. Issei, you will have to forgive me, but you will have to reveal your identity to save those humans, he said with a sigh. Sora, wow, what a troublesome master, he said, smiling. Runa, she said exactly the same thing as her sister. Everyone already had the plan, so they set out. Issei went up a few floors where he felt the magical power of the great species that led him to a room. And without further ado he entered, and what he saw was what the puppet showed him. Issei, Jojojaj, that kid is so dead, he thought with a macabre smile. As I recall, this guy is called a semi-goddess. Issei approaches the cage, destroying the lock and alerting the fox girl, who became scared and backed away. Issei, calm down, I'm just going to heal you, she said, so that a dark matter enveloped her, and from one moment to the next she no longer had any wounds, and the girl, looking at her body and seeing that she had no wounds, looked into Issei's eyes and was surprised by what she saw. What is your name? He said as he rubbed her cheek, causing her to shed a few tears as she curled up in Issei's hand. Nina, and I nah, she said while crying. My name is Nina, she said while hugging Issei, that she did not expect this action, and that she tells Issei when she was in her temple, and when Edgar's guards came to her village, and how he threatened them for wanting her, and since she had no choice she put on the slave collar, thus allowing Edgar to hit her since the collar nullifies her powers. Nina, since then I've been here alone, scared to death and hurt, but I've held on, she said with her eyes downcast. Issei, I'm surprised. Any child would break or die the following week, he thought with true surprise. You are very strong and kind. Do not worry. I will save you, he said, stroking Nina's head, who for some reason liked the soft caress. In that Issei put his hands on the necklace, but Nina moved it away, warning him that it had a very powerful spell. Issei, calm down, trust me, he said to take out his dragon wings, surprising the kitsune and marveling her, thus letting Issei continue with what he was going to do. In that Issei tried to use the Tamer power, but what he got was a strong electric shock. He that tickles, he said to laugh a little at the attempt to harm him. Nina, when she saw the discharge on Issei, was worried but calmed down when she saw that it didn't affect him at all. At that point Issei with a little force broke the necklace. Issei, this is no longer useful, Hawkeye said as the necklace faded into existence. It's done. Ready to go, he said to carry them like a child. Nina, yes, she said while hugging Issei by the neck. Outside the mansion, the pitched battle continued, but everything was in favor of the knights and of course on the part of Tanya, Kanade, and Penemu. Guard 1, finish them off. Don't let them enter the mansion, he shouted to his companions. Stella, hold on. We have justice on our side, she shouted to her companions. Tanya, yes, well done, she said while sitting on a pile of unconscious knights while knocking out 4 with her tail. Penemu, whatever, he said while kicking one of them, sending him into a group of knights, knocking them down in the process. That was a joke. Point for me, he said with grace, while Kanade used a knight as a club and used it to hit other knights. Tanai, I'm bored of having to hold back my strength. I wish it were with the infiltrators, she said, sighing disappointedly. Penemu, you wouldn't be of much help, she informed her dragon companion. Kanade, that role isn't the best for an idiot like you, Tanya said. Kanade, receiving a judging look from Tanya. Guard 1, in that case, bring the women and use them as hostages, he told his companions, but suddenly fireballs started raining down on them. These were Sora and Runa who had cast the spell. Runa, haha. The stars have arrived, she said haughtily. Sora, we are taking the prisoners to a safe place, he informed his companions. Runa, the time for holding back is over, she said, giving Tanya a thumbs up. Tanya, that's what I was waiting for, she said, clenching her fists. Penemu, well, I'm not going to hold back anymore, he said as he took out his fallen angel wings and created several spears of light. Gabriel, don't forget my truth, Penemu said, also taking out his angel wings but with the sword that was forged for him. Kanade, all right. Here we go, he said to hit left and right. Inside the mansion, Issei was running with Nina on his back until he heard his name being called. Issei, girls, I see that you could do everything, he said to approach them and speak calmly. But the girls saw the girl on her back and looked at Issei seriously. Penemu, what memories, she said with some grace when she saw the jealous girls. She reminded them of her time when Issei was literally showered with women and they all got jealous. Gabriel, yes, those are times, she said, laughing under her breath so that no one could hear her. Tenai Kanade Runa Sora, Issei got another girl, they said at the same time. Issei, I have a serious déjà vu, he thought with a drop of sweat. Whatever. We'll talk later, he said to put Nina down. Penemu Issei, that girl doesn't remind you of anyone, he said while silently pointing at the girl. Issei, yes, she looks like Kuna, he said seriously while his nails became a little alarmed. But then Nina's squeal was heard, and the reason was that Kanade was rubbing her face against Nina's tail. Kanade, how soft, she said while continuing to rub her face against Nina's tail, and they were followed by Tanya and Gabriel. Stella, you have another great species by your side. You are exceptional, she said, looking with a slight blush at Issei, something that Penemu noticed, and grabbed Issei's hand and put it on her big chest. Penemu, no, my sister, get yours, she said while hugging Issei by the neck. Everyone was in a funny and one could say calm atmosphere, until the Lord of Horizon appeared and Stella asked him to surrender, but the old man refused. But Issei with a quick movement with a black whip tied the Lord of Horizon, making him fall down the stairs. But then Edgar arrives furious. Edgar, Issei, die! He exclaimed furiously, pointing the ring at him, and a grim reaper came out of it. Issei, interesting, he said, smiling with fangs, and his eyes turned to those of a dragon, while a dark purple aura surrounds him, while red eyes manifest behind him. The Grim Reaper hesitated for a second, but then without caring he went on the attack and raised his sickle to reap Issei's soul, and the girls panicked. When the sickle touched Issei's body it broke. Issei, trash, Hawkeye said to raise a hand and point at the Grim Reaper, and a half-transparent and purple sickness surrounded the Grim Reaper, and was destroying it without leaving anything. On the roof of the mansion, Arians were seen laughing like crazy. Arios, so I used it, he said with a laugh. It seems that the bet went well, he said while a mass of darkness passed at high speed next to him. Arios thought it was just the Grim Reaper's spell without knowing it. Behind him a clone of Issei formed that looked at him as if he were nothing. Arios, now you will die like the damned trash that you are. Ha 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 ha, goodbye Issei. Finally I can sleep peacefully, he said, ready to leave. Issei, clone, who is the one who will die, Arians? He said seriously while Arians was petrified. I don't know if it will be from fear or from shock. Arios, C.cc company como, it's impossible, he said between stutters of fear. Issei, clone, that does not interest you, he said to approach and then give him a powerful blow to the stomach, causing him to spit blood. If you come back and hurt my women, I will destroy your soul and I will transmit your screams throughout the world, so that no despicable, disrespectful being dares to challenge me, he said with his dragon voice while acquiring draconic features while he grabs his wrist, breaking it in the process, causing the unfortunate man to scream in pain. That's a small sample, he said to give an order to his puppet that will take him where he lives. Inside the mansion. Issei, I didn't expect anything less, he said seriously while the memories of his clone came to him, and he could only smile maliciously. Is something wrong? He said, seeing how his girls looked at him with concern except for Gabriel, Penemu and Tanya, the latter looking at him questioningly but equally worried. Kanade, Issei, she said as she threw herself at Issei's chest while hugging him. Are you okay? That thing hit you with the scythe? She asked him worriedly. Tanya, aren't you hurt? Does something hurt? She said, equally worried. Sora, I'll heal you. Tell me where it hurts, quickly. Sora said worried, and Runa was the same, saying that they weren't going to let him die. Nina, please don't die, the girl said very worried. Penemu, you better calm down, Issei won't die because of such a weak one, she said, crossing her arms. Gabriel, believe me, we've seen Issei receive worse attacks than that, and I tell you that one literally destroyed his body, he said as he remembered how Samuel's poison destroyed her husband's body. Everyone calmed down and began to theorize about why he didn't die or get hurt, even though Issei had already informed them that he was immune to magic and therefore also to spells. Runa, seriously, let me try something? She said to create a spell. Poison drop, she said, so that a poisonous spray would come out of the magic circle that hit Issei squarely but didn't do anything to him. Incredible, she said in wonder. Sora, what the hell is going on in your head, you idiot? Who in their right mind throws poison at their master? He said while shaking her fiercely. Kanade poison? She said as a drop of sweat ran down her cheek. Tanya, what does this mean, Runa? she said while raising her arms comically. Everyone calmed down and started talking about how Stella finds it hard to believe what they know about the world, while Edgar just watched angrily and furiously as Issei was still alive and cursing Issei, making the ring have more power, and a demonic voice came out of it. And from it came a purple fleshy mass with darkness that enveloped Edgar, who screamed that they would help him, but Issei turned a deaf ear, while the others did nothing because of the impression. As the mass finished swallowing Edgar, it formed a cocoon. And from the cocoon began to come out black smoke that looked like dark water, and from this came a claw that had a demonic aura surrounding it. "You have revived me?" said the being with a demonic voice. "I owe you my gratitude, thank you very much, and to thank you, I will kill you. I will do it without mercy, or dignity, or so I would like to say, but I have more toys," he said maliciously, and flew away to the town. Penemu/Gabriel, sad face a demon, thought at the same time, that can only mean that the war is about to begin between demons and gods. "Issei, I think it doesn't matter anymore," he said seriously, and everyone looked at him. "Today the earth, heaven and hell will have a reminder that they should not mess with the dragon of the apocalypse," he said with his deep voice. "Gabriel, seriously, you will do it, Issei, you will be the target of everyone," he said seriously. "Penemu, they will hunt you down or they will seal you. In the worst case, you are not at your maximum power yet. And without your maximum power you will not be able to withstand a divine level seal," she said seriously. "Issei, girls, get out of here," he said seriously as an aura began to surround him. "Nina, I know you don't like to fight, but just as a precaution you will stay with Gabriel and Penemu for your safety," he said without looking at the girl, who just nodded. "Issei, I will bring death and the end of all," he said seriously. "Today it does not matter who attacks him. It does not matter if they seal him or kill him, he will always return, and he has shown it in the times he came back to life." "Issei, Acnologia, I am Acnologia. Roar," he exclaimed and roared at the world. His roar echoed, reaching heaven and hell.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.